Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Adding Messaging Channels, Why More is Better. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I wanted to let you know that all of you that are attending today's live webinar and everyone that registered will receive a link to a recording of this session in their email after the end of it, of course. So if you forget something that seems really important, you want to watch it again because there's so much great information, you will have the opportunity to do so, and you won't have to do anything to make that happen. And I think that is about it. Without a little bit of, one more thing to mention. If you do have questions, go ahead and feel free to add them into the chat. We will be having some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And if we are not able to get to your question during the session today, we will have someone follow up via email to help make sure that you get your questions answered. All right, and without further ado, I would like to welcome our speaker for today, Eva Wei, who is OneSignal's Director of Product Marketing. Welcome, Eva.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Chris. So glad you guys are here today. Really excited. We got a lot of topics to cover today. By way of introduction, I'm Eva. I head up our product marketing here at OneSignal. And prior to OneSignal, I led a growth team at a consumer startup. So been on both sides of the B2B to B2C business side of things. So all right, let's go ahead and get started. Share my screen and let's put this in presenter mode. Awesome. So today we will be covering why some of you may consider adding new channels. Why more is better. And to start off, real quick overview of the agenda. We'll cover why more is better. We'll cover some example results that our clients have achieved. We'll go over how you can add more, and then what after that. And then, like Chris said, we'll end with some Q&A. So please go ahead and answer or enter your questions in the box as we go along. So starting off, why it may make sense for many of you, probably most of you, to actually add more messaging channels. And one of the driving reasons is if you only have one line of communication with your users, when your users unsubscribe, they're basically gone. You've lost your one lifeline. There is that saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And the same is true for messaging, because when your users unsubscribe, it's not just you can no longer send them messages. That's like the most obvious kind of like repercussion, like poof, they're gone. But also when you lose that line of communication, it really affects kind of like your long-term LTV values as well. So I know a lot of businesses are concerned with CAC, LTV, that the ratio between the two. And if you lose that line of communication with your customers, it's going to be harder to get them back, to get them to convert again. And so what you end up with is a possible imbalance between your CAC and LTV. And so when you diversify and you add more messaging channels, you just have a lot more ways of reaching your users. As well, there are a lot of different consumer preferences, right? Like some people may prefer email, some people may prefer push notifications. And it's really smart to be able to give your users the choice of how they want to hear from you. So not everyone might want to receive your email. And if you are able to get those consumer preferences and really understand how they want to be communicated with, you can create the right messaging strategy to message your users, drive engagement, conversions, and all that good stuff. Actually, if you think about it, taking a step back, a cross-channel approach has really become table stakes for messaging. So a lot of customers do start with a single channel that could work in the early days, but it's really important to have, again, additional touch points with your customers. And what you do see a lot of customers then progress onto is they take the next step. They are able to diversify. They add more channels. So you might go from email, you might add SMS, or if you're push only, you might add email, and vice versa. So this diversification is really good for your performance. It's able to boost your performance conversions, but the downside is it does take a lot of time to manage each channel individually, especially if you have different tools for every single channel. And so what we often seen is, marketers are having to do a lot of extra work. There's context switching between siloed messaging tools, and it's like just not really coordinated and optimized. You're, managing email in one tool, you're managing push in another tool, and you really don't have that kind of like coordinated messaging strategy across the two. And what we end up finding is companies end up paying more, not just the actual costs of managing multiple tools, but there are also ongoing operating costs. There's costs in terms of like time and employees, managing everything as well. And so what we really recommend is being able to upgrade to a really truly coordinated customer experience where messaging across your different platforms and devices is actually seamlessly part of your product experience. So this approach, you're able to reach your customers in like a lot more cohesive way. And again, what I mentioned earlier is it depends on your business and it depends on your customers. So it's important also to find like the right mix of channels dependent on your business. And then we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but then being able to automate everything and orchestrate is basically going to lead to a performance boost and major time savings. And what we found also is companies who do leverage cross-channel messaging of 2 or more channels, they're able to see a 220% or more increase in LTV. So I think sometimes the results really do speak for themselves. And a little bit more on what we were saying before, this more cross-channel, this more omni-channel approach, you're able to provide a lot more of like a dynamic and personalized experience for your customers, especially if you're able to have insight into your user preferences and behavior. You're able to create these like coordinated triggered campaigns. You're able to send users down different messaging branches based on who they are, their user characteristics, as well as their behavior and how they're interacting with their product. And so, having all your channels in one place and coordinating across all of them, you're able to just really deepen user relationships and trust as well. And when I mentioned different messaging channels, here we have a buffet of different messaging channels that you could take advantage of. For example, there's push notifications and in-app, especially for app users. These are really kind of like the bread and butter of a lot of communication strategies as well. Email is definitely the elephant in the room. It's giant, it's pervasive, everyone has it. SMS, we've definitely seen a lot higher user adoption recently, especially with a lot of industry changes that have been enacted to help prevent like spam. So for example, now if you want to send SMS, you have to register your number and your messaging use cases. And there are a lot of just industry developments that have happened to bring a lot more trust to that industry. And then finally, we also have live activities. This is a relatively newer channel. Apple just introduced it, and it basically allows people to have the real-time up-to-date basically notification. So for example, your favorite sports team, you can keep track of the live score. If you've ordered like food delivery, you can track minute by minute how that's going. And it's a really cool channel that have excited a lot of people in the industry. And so with all of this cross-channel orchestration and all that, we actually do see our clients achieve some pretty cool results. We had a survey out to our users, and what we basically found is, first of all, the majority of our customers are using more than one channel, which is really exciting to see. And the effects of that are, compared to the users that are only using one channel, you can see there are major increases in both engagement, conversions, and especially retention, especially like I mentioned, retention, because now you have multiple touch points, multiple lifelines out to your customer. If they unsubscribe from one, you have other ways of reaching out to them. You see less of an increase in click-through rate, which not surprisingly, because click-through rate is pretty channel dependent. So if you add email to your push or add push to your email, you're probably going to get similar lines of engagement in the original channel. The benefit really is just having a lot more different ways of reaching your users. And this was a really cool quote. This is from a director on a leading sneaker retail platform. And they mentioned, leveraging in-app and push for real-time notifications really boosted their engagement. Their click-through rate is pretty impressive. And they're also able to use in-app to drive a lot of ratings, which then with the higher ratings led to higher visibility, led to more downloads. So it's really this great karma loop of good messaging leads to good results, leads to more users. And it's like I mentioned, it's pretty great that their click-through rate is so high, and it's probably because they're able to have these targeted sends and really personalizing their messaging to their audience. But again, all businesses are kind of different. So you might have different KPIs, or you might have different business goals and objectives. So for example, some might be concerned with increasing traffic. Others might be more focused on increasing engagement. Everyone really wants to increase revenue. And so we've got some really great results from a variety of different companies across a variety of different industries. So increasing traffic, engagement has doubled. OneSignal has unlocked untapped revenue sources. So some really great results from these customers that are able to, add more messaging and just really drive a lot greater results from this. And so this is all great. Adding channels is great, but how do you actually do it? So we're going to get a little bit more tactical here. Because there are so many different businesses with different business models and objectives and all of that, it is a bit hard to kind of just recommend this is what everyone should do, because it's not going to be applicable for everyone. But we do recommend taking a step back and starting with an evaluation of your current platform. So for example, if a lot of these resonate with you, things like I can't target my specific audience, I can't personalize the content, I'm not able to automate and send the right messages at the right time. For example, I can't trigger messages in real time based on user behavior. For example, if a person adds something in the cart, are you following up, for example, with an abandoned cart notification? Are you following up with a price drop notification if that item drops in price, et cetera, et cetera? Are you having problems with deliverability? Are you having issues with your messaging tools not integrating with the rest of your tech stack? This is definitely a very common conundrum we find a lot of our customers have dealt with before OneSignal. They have their data in one place, they have their messaging in another place, and you're not really easily able to move between the two. Some users have also mentioned that their existing tool is too complex or technical. Others have mentioned that they're not really getting the support that they need. So if, as I went through that, a lot of those resonate with you, it may be a sign that you've outgrown your current solution. Especially, a lot of these have direct repercussions as well. So for example, if you're not achieving current KPIs or goals, if you're not able to drive either, the traffic, engagement, or revenue, a lot of that can actually be affected by a good messaging solution. And so some of our clients have also, started out with a homegrown solution too. And what they found was building internally is very tough. There are constant developments in the industry. So for example, Apple launching live activities, Android starting to require opt-in permissions. There's a lot of industry developments that actually require a lot of just constant upkeep and updates. Another example is for those of you on Firebase Cloud Messaging, Google's deprecating their legacy setup, which a lot of users are still on. The great thing about a solution like OneSignal is this is our job. We have dedicated engineers that are specifically working on industry developments and making sure that we have the latest and greatest updates so that you're able to focus on the things that really matter to your business instead of like the messaging infrastructure behind it. And so what we found is, we've worked with a lot of clients that have outgrown their native systems, and then especially clients who scale and realize that their systems can't handle that growth and that scale. A lot of clients do end up coming to OneSignal for reliability. And so, we have it down here. Our engineers are spending a lot of time not only building new features, but also maintaining existing features as well. So it's kind of like a cost benefit analysis, like your classic build versus buy. It's just something to keep in mind for those of you who are going through this process now. And one quick note, another reason why a lot of companies do end up choosing a solution like OneSignal is because not only does it make their lives easier, but they are really able to trust in this one tool to fulfill their needs. So just an example from OneSignal side of things, we really do work with companies of all sizes across all industries, from SMBs to mid-market to enterprise, and we consistently rank really well for just being really easy to do business with. We really pride ourselves on getting people up and running really quickly, really like decreasing that onboarding time, decreasing that time to value, so you're able to see results quickly. And at least specifically speaking from the OneSignal perspective, it's actually extremely easy to onboard new channels. On average, it took companies 8 days to complete their setup, and 40% of those who responded were up and running in less than 5 days. And these are people who are using 2 or more channels. So at least just from like a purely execution standpoint, it's super easy. You can just add channels directly in your dashboard. It's a very, very simple process, specifically with with OneSignal. And not only do we have the ability to get up and running really quickly, we also have a lot of great tooling in place to start building on top of just your basic setup as well. A lot of people really focus on the onboarding, building their engaged audience, and we have a lot of great no-code, low-code tools to get you up and running. And as you guys probably all are aware, engagement and retention do start with user acquisition and opt-in. And we have a lot of tools to help you grow your subscriber list. So for example, getting your anonymous users to opt in to notifications. We have a great slide prompt to capture email addresses and phone numbers. And all of this is really important because y'all are probably spending a lot of money on acquisition, for paid marketing, performance marketing. There's been a lot of changes in the industry in the past couple of years, and it's become increasingly hard, increasingly expensive. There's been just like an erosion in terms of industry trust in like third-party data. And OneSignal is great because we actually provide ways for you to capture first-party data directly in our dashboard. And so not only building your engaged audience is easy, it's also easy in terms of getting data in and out of OneSignal. We use something called data tags. That's like the basis of our data setup in OneSignal. And these you're basically able to customize your triggers, customize your audiences, customize your message content. We have a lot of different ways of getting data into and out of OneSignal. Our SDKs actually already capture a lot of information by default. For example, things like sessions, what's the default device language, where is the device located, things like that. And right off the bat, you have access to all of that to help just easily segment and target your messaging. We also have a lot of no-code tools, again, to capture that first-party data. For example, we have like in-app surveys, we have our category prompt where users can easily tell you what subjects they're interested in. We have journeys, we have user profiles, and you can always rely on the good old reliable CSV upload. And all of these tools are at your disposal to get up and running really quickly, so you can add relevant data to these new channels as well. And so that's great. You add your new channels, you've added new ways to capture audiences, you've added new data sources. Then what? What's next is the automation side of things. And this is where Journeys really comes into play. And Journeys is great for cross-channel orchestration. You're easily able to mix and match across your different messaging channels. You can combine push, in-app, email, SMS, along with a lot of different kind of like triggers and orchestration activities. So for example, you can have like wait branches, you can split branches and send people down different messaging paths. And you're able to use Journeys to really amplify your messaging by either reinforcing your messaging in like a different value, in a different messaging channel, or you can communicate other value props if the ones that you usually rely on people are not really responding to. And it's just this really flexible canvas to be able to build out these really sophisticated messaging workflows that really take into account your users, who they are, and how they're interacting with your product. And one of the major benefits and value props that our customers really love about Journeys is really that time element. You're able to automate things, Journeys run in real time, and you're just able to save so much time. Instead of sending a lot of manual campaigns, just string them all together in the Journeys, right? Think about like the last promotion you did. You may have started off with like one email and then had to send 4 or 5 different follow-up emails, each with like a manual audience pool, manual creation, and all of that. Whereas with Journeys, you can just set it all up in one go, and then your users will just flow through automatically. And you're able to, for example, exit them early if they achieve your desired conversion and things like that. And then just a quick note on the builder itself. It's extremely intuitive and easy to use. It's accessible to everyone. You don't need to wait on engineering resources to like set up your logic. You're actually able to do a lot of that directly in the dashboard. We really did just take care of all of that for you. And then finally, the whole point of all of this, of adding more channels, of automating your messaging, is you really want to guide your users to success. What success is or means, again, is going to depend on your business and your goals and objectives. But OneSignal provides you with the tool set to really, again, like just guide users down the path that they need to go. And all of this is basically seamlessly integrated with your overall user experience. Oftentimes, some people treat messaging as kind of like an afterthought, or they're kind of like, oh, we should do this. But what we found is that people who take the time to invest in their messaging strategy really are able to achieve some phenomenal results. And with Journeys, there's a ton of different journeys that you could set up, anywhere from onboarding, re-engagement, post-action, sales campaigns and promotions, events, trials, upgrade flows, user challenges, post-purchase, really anything where you're thinking about this is an important milestone in the user journey, really should have a journey associated with that. So once they hit their milestone, what do they need to know after to move them further down the customer journey to the next milestone? You can see here we have a really great quote from our customer Eat Street. They're able to use these personalized journeys to really personalize their customer lifecycle, increase engagement and conversions across the board. And one final call out that we have a lot of different resources to help you, not only with adding more messaging channels to your current messaging strategy, but also with journeys, and especially journeys. We've got a lot of detailed blog posts where we've detailed example journeys, like we've mapped out, day 1, day 2, day 7, what that would look like. We also have really detailed documentation with like further examples as well. We have a ton of resources out there for those of you who may be newer to messaging and not sure where to get started. We're running out of time today, so we can save that for a future webinar, or you're able to go check it out on our blog and our documentation site. And as always, our fantastic support team is always available to help with any specific questions you have for your setup as well. And then finally, we'll end with some questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Eva. That was excellent, super informative. We do have a few questions that hopefully we can make some time for. And again, just a reminder, if we don't have time to get to your question today, I will make sure that someone follows up with you directly, because I don't want you wondering your question and not getting an answer. So first, from Kuzi, he asks, what are some best practices related to user journey automation?
Yeah, that's a great question. It will depend on, again, your business, your goals and objectives, but there are some general just best practices in terms of like journeys. For example, starting off with targeting the right audience. I mentioned before, a lot of companies will create separate journeys that are tied to specific user journey milestones. So instead of just having like one giant journey that could last for like, a month, if your users are, some are going to be more advanced than others, really targeting the journeys to the different milestones in your user journey. Following on that is just choosing the right length of the journey. I have seen some where their journey is just this giant flow, whereas others will break it down to a little bit more bite size and digestible kind of like chunks. And as part of that, just following basic messaging best practices. So making sure your messaging is relevant to your audience, making sure you're personalizing the content, especially with journeys. And I know we have a lot of fans of like A/B testing, always testing and learning. One thing that I actually found a lot of success with in my prior role at the B2C company was identifying which are your successful kind of like one-off campaigns, and then automating them, building journeys around them. So for example, if you send like one really cool promo, think about how do you make it future-proof? How do you make it something that's evergreen and will keep on running instead of that's just like a one-time send?
That's great. It makes a ton of sense. All right, next we have a question from Tony, which maybe was answered during the course of the presentation, but couldn't hurt to circle back around. Are more channels better? What is the downside or potential risk?
Yeah, that is a great question. So there are definitely benefits to going from 1 to 2 because of what I said, where if you only have like the one lifeline, and once that's cut, it's gone. There are probably like diminishing returns with a ton of channels. A lot of this will depend on your resourcing. So for example, if you're at a large company and you have the resources, so for example, one person manages like email, another person manages like push, If you have the dedicated resources to have like a really cohesive strategy around each channel, you can reap a lot of great returns. However, if you're at like a smaller company and you have like one person managing all the channels, too many might be too much. Like they're going to be stretched too thin. You're not able to dedicate and like really leverage each channel for all its worth. And so it just depends on how many resources you have. In general, though, at least 2+, I think is probably like a no regrets answer for almost all companies. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, your consumers are going to have different messaging preferences. So if you put all your eggs in one basket, you may just, lose them as a potential customer.
Right, right. All right, we have time for just one more. This
Okay.
one is from Yogesh. Does OneSignal integrate with existing email services or does it replace them?
Yes, good question. So we give you the choice. Our email product, you are able to bring your own provider. We do support 3 email providers, which are Mailgun, MailChimp Transactional, and SendGrid. So if you already have, for example, a transactional setup, it's super easy to just add that to OneSignal, and you can start adding marketing campaigns on top of that. You can also like bring over your transactional templates, and then your marketers can optimize those without being reliant on engineering. We also do have OneSignal email as well, where we manage all of that for you. And one of the really great benefits of OneSignal email is, if you bring your own, you do still have that existing relationship as well as the OneSignal relationship. So you're kind of like managing like 2 tools, like paying in 2 places. Whereas with OneSignal email, because we just take care of everything, it really is like a more cohesive, like unified kind of user experience.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that is definitely all that we have time for today. Eva, I want to thank you again. And I also want to thank all of you who registered and attended. Again, watch for a follow-up with a link to the recording of this session. And if you ask a question, we will get you an answer. That is my commitment to you. Once again, we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.